There's a moment at the end of the first Shrek movie that almost everyone gets wrong. Shrek gets the girl. Fiona chooses him. Farquaad is gone. The swamp is his again. Everyone sings. Smash Mouth plays. Credits roll. And the general read from audiences everywhere was happy ending. He won. Story over. But watch it again. Shrek stands in front of everything he said he wanted. The solitude. The swamp. Nobody bothering him. And Fiona. And he looks fine. Relieved maybe. Like someone whose flight just landed after a 6-hour delay. Okay, we made it. Good. And then Shrek 2 opens, and within 20 minutes he's miserable. He got there. He arrived. And arriving felt exactly like everywhere else he'd ever been. That's one of the most honest things any animated film has ever put on screen, and almost nobody talks about it, probably because it's hiding inside a movie where Antonio Banderas voices a cat, which is a lot to sit with. But I want to talk about it today, because if you've ever worked towards something for a long time, a relationship, a job, a version of your life that was supposed to fix everything, and then you got it, and within a few weeks, the familiar weight came back, this video is for you. Shrek did everything right. He got exactly what he wanted. That's the problem. So let's go back to the first film, because you need to understand what Shrek was actually chasing before you can understand why getting it broke something in him. The whole first movie, Shrek has one goal: get the princess delivered, get his swamp back, get everyone out, and return to the exact life he had before any of this started. That's the finish line. Solitude. Peace. Nothing wanting anything from him. He built walls. Literally. There's a scene where he's making keep out signs, and you realize this man spent genuine time and energy designing his own rejection infrastructure. The swamp wasn't somewhere he ended up. It was a decision, and the safest one he knew how to make. So the entire first film, Shrek is running toward a destination, a concrete, specific, external thing he can point at and say that, when I have that, I'll be okay. He gets it. More or less. He gets the swamp, he gets Fiona, he gets Donkey checking in every 17 minutes, but close enough. And then Shrek 2 opens with a honeymoon montage, charming and sweet, and it ends with Shrek looking out at the swamp at night while Fiona sleeps. There's something in his expression that doesn't read as peace. It reads as a man quietly registering that the thing he spent the entire first movie fighting to get back is not doing what he thought it would do. He has everything, and everything isn't enough, and he has no language for why. There's a concept in psychology called the arrival fallacy. The arrival fallacy is the belief that reaching a specific goal will produce a lasting sense of happiness or relief. That once you get there, wherever there is for you, something fundamental will shift, the weight will lift, the restlessness will quiet, and you'll finally feel okay in a way that holds. When I get the promotion, when I lose the weight, when I find the right person, when people finally recognize what I've been building, when the swamp is quiet and mine and nobody's asking anything of me anymore. The belief feels true when you're inside it, obvious even. Of course you'll feel better then. The problem is structural. Your brain is built to adapt, and whatever emotional state you arrive at, it begins normalizing, almost immediately. The spike fades, the baseline comes back, and then you're standing in your new life, feeling the old feelings, which is disorienting in a very specific way, because if this didn't fix it, then what will? Shrek has no framework for this. He just knows he got the thing, and the thing didn't fix the feeling, and so he does what most people do without a framework. He looks for a new variable to blame. He blames the relationship. He blames far, far away. He blames the gap between what he is and what Fiona's world seems to want him to be. The error is completely logical. It just happens to be wrong. Most people treat Shrek 2 as the fun sequel, the one with Puss, the one with Far, Far Away, the one with the fairy godmother song that genuinely hasn't left anyone's head since 2004. And it is all of those things. But Shrek 2 works and holds up in a way Shrek 3 and 4 never came close to, because it takes the emotional reality of the first film seriously. At the end of Shrek 1, two people who'd spent their whole lives keeping everyone out chose each other. That matters. But choosing someone and knowing how to be with them are different things entirely. Shrek wanted Fiona. He couldn't fully receive her family. He wanted to belong somewhere. He couldn't let himself be seen wanting it. He wanted to feel like enough, but that's not something anyone can hand to you from the outside. The film wraps all of this in potions and fairy godmothers and Prince Charming being aggressively mediocre, but the real story is Shrek confronting what he couldn't see at the end of the first movie, that the arrival was never going to be the answer, and the work starts after you get there. That's the part the first film couldn't show. Getting there was the whole thing. There's a second psychological mechanism at work here, and it's worth naming, because it operates differently from the arrival fallacy, but leads to the same place. It's called hedonic adaptation. The finding is consistent enough that it's about as settled as psychology gets. Humans adapt rapidly to positive changes in their circumstances. Lottery winners, after an initial surge, return to roughly their previous baseline within a year or two. People who get promotions move somewhere they'd always wanted to live, enter relationships they'd been waiting for. The lift is real, but it fades. Whatever level of happiness you were operating at before, your brain trends back toward it. This sounds bleak until you understand the mechanism. Your brain adapted to every good thing that ever happened to you, because staying in a state of peak emotion indefinitely would make it impossible to function. The adaptation is a feature. The problem is that nobody builds their life knowing this. You build your life on the assumption that the right external conditions will produce the right internal state and hold it there. So when the conditions arrive and the state doesn't hold, when the swamp is yours and you're still waking up with the same quiet anxiety you've always had, it doesn't feel like neuroscience. It feels like something is wrong with you specifically. Shrek has no language for any of this. He just knows that getting there didn't work. And without understanding why, he does the only thing that makes sense to him. He starts looking for a different there to get to. Here's where it gets more specific. And this is the part I think matters most. The arrival fallacy and hedonic adaptation are both real, but they're symptoms of something underneath them. Most people never actually figure out what they want to feel. They figure out what they want to have and assume having it will produce the feeling. The feeling is the real target. It always was, but we almost never go after it directly. Shrek wanted to feel safe. That was the actual thing. Safe from rejection, safe from being told he was too much or not enough. The swamp was the strategy. The walls were the strategy. None of those things are the feeling. They were all attempts to engineer conditions that would produce the feeling indirectly. And that's how most people move through their lives, chasing containers and believing the right one will finally hold the thing they've been looking for. The job title, the relationship, the house, the recognition. The moment someone finally sees what you've been doing and tells you it was worth it, and when the container arrives and the feeling doesn't fill it, we don't usually conclude the strategy was wrong. We conclude we got the wrong container, and we start building toward the next one. Shrek across the second film starts to register this slowly through the very unsubtle metaphor of a potion that literally transforms him into what the world thinks he should be: human, handsome, acceptable, the version of himself with no reason to be kept out. And it still doesn't work. The thing he actually needs isn't a different container. It's to stop organizing his entire life around finding one. I want to be direct here because the animated film framing can make it easy to watch this at a distance. If you've ever hit a goal and felt nothing, or close to nothing, this is what happened to you. The spike was real. The first few days, maybe the first few weeks, something was there, and then it leveled, and the weight came back, and you told yourself you were being ungrateful. You told yourself other people would want what you have. You told yourself to focus on the next thing, and so you focused on the next thing. This is what happens when the strategy is wrong, because the strategy is the same one everyone around you is running. The question Shrek 2 keeps circling underneath everything else it's doing is this: what does having the thing actually do for you? And can you go after that directly? What does the swamp give Shrek? Safety. The sense that nothing can get in unless he allows it. The question the film eventually forces him toward, the one he spends most of it avoiding, is whether he can carry that feeling without needing to live inside a fortress to produce it. That's not a question with an easy answer. Shrek doesn't fully answer it by the credits. He gets partway there, and it takes Donkey, Puss in Boots, a fairy godmother who turns out to be the antagonist, and a king who was secretly a frog the entire time to get him even that far. So if you're somewhere in the middle of that question yourself, the bar has been set generously. There's a moment near the end of Shrek 2 that most people process quickly and move past. King Harold, Fiona's father, cold and obstructive for most of the film, finally accepts Shrek. And the reason he does is more interesting than it first appears. Harold was the Frog Prince. He took a potion decades before the events of the film to become what the world needed him to be. He performed as a king for so long that the performance became the whole thing. He loved Fiona and had no idea how to love her and be himself at the same time. So he chose the performance over and over, every time a choice came up. Watching Shrek refuse that, watching Shrek stand there as exactly what he is, Harold recognizes something. The alternative was possible. You could be the thing no one expected and still be in the room. Harold doesn't accept Shrek because the situation resolved cleanly. He accepts him because Shrek did something Harold had spent his entire life unable to do. He showed up without the container. And that's the actual arrival Shrek 2 is building toward the whole film. Underneath the plot, underneath the music, underneath all of it. The moment Shrek stops organizing himself around what will make him acceptable and becomes, against every instinct he has, available to just be seen. That's the arrival that holds. It doesn't fade the way external things fade. It's not a destination. It's something closer to a practice, quiet and unglamorous and uncomfortable most of the time, being exactly what you are and seeing what the world does with it. The arrival fallacy is real. Hedonic adaptation is real. But the reason they trap us is that we've been measuring the wrong thing, pointing at external conditions and calling them happiness. Shrek didn't need the swamp back. He needed to reach a point where he no longer needed it to feel okay. The distance between those two things, between having the thing and no longer requiring it, is the whole journey. The happily ever after was never a place. It was always a way of moving through wherever you already are. If you've ever stood inside something you worked hard to build and wondered why it still feels like something is missing, that's not ingratitude. That's the arrival fallacy, and it's been running quietly in the background longer than you probably realize. Recognizing it doesn't fix everything, but it's the first honest step.